Hello, viewers of SSBC, wherever you are. Welcome to this special program that we are conducting today here from our main studio in Nyakuran. And of course, today is 25th June 2025, as we are celebrating first anniversary since the President of the Republic, Salva Kiir Mayardit, launched the census result of seasonal wildlife migration, which is known as Great Nile Migration. I'm glad to be joined in the studio by two of our main guests here. First of all, we have Director General of Wildlife Conservation Forces, General Khamisa Diang Ding. You're most welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, SCPC, for hosting us.
Thank you. You're welcome. And again, we have Ms. Dorette Smith, who is the Country Director of African Parks Network, one of the major partners of Ministry of Wildlife Conservation. Welcome.
Good morning, Martin.
Yes. As you heard that we are celebrating first anniversary since the launching of the seasonal wildlife migration, which is the Great Nile migration. And it is the major migration, or the migration that have the largest mammal in the world. How is the celebrations now, DJ Khamis?
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's good that we are celebrating the first anniversary for the launching of the studies that we did with in collaboration with African Parks, our partner. And it was an obvious plan that, we should know the status of wildlife in the Republic of South Sudan, especially in the main areas of migration in the Republic of South Sudan, namely Badingil National Park and Buma, plus the Tungule landscape. So it was good to start with a database that is known to us about the species we have, and then their numbers, and their movement, and the area they cover. So our partner, African Parks, they conducted the survey 2023-2024, and the results were launched by His Excellency the President of the Republic. And that results actually put the Republic of South Sudan at the top of being the first biggest migration in the global.
Yeah. Yes. Do you have something on this?
It's the biggest land mammal migration on Earth. I remember, for years, we've known about the migration. So it was interesting to, yes, conduct this aerial survey in 2023, after which the biggest land mammal migration was unveiled. And it's a year later. We have just finished our second aerial survey. We're looking at the report to come out in September, and using a lot of different technology this year to do the count of animals. We're looking forward to that report coming out in September, and I know that we'll talk about some trends that we're seeing in the landscape, but also development that's been happening.
And of course, your partners came after the agreement that you signed in 2022. And that agreement is focusing on areas of development, conservation, and community engagement. So we want to take this one by one, like major part is conservation. And the result was about 6 million wildlife moving together, different types of animal species. So we want to focus, DJ Khamis, or the viewers want to see the major wildlife species that moving in this wildlife migration.
Yeah, you have mentioned something to do with the MOU between us, yes, and the African Parks. It was an obvious change, actually. In 2020, we had an opportunity to have Minister General Rizk Zakaria Hassan in the ministry, a person with his own idea and principles, and he came with solid, ideas that should be implemented after listening to us. He listened to us for more than 6 months. We were talking, he was observing, he was taking notes. Then he came out with some resolution that should be taken to improve the level of the ministry from where it was to where it is now. And as we can see now, the ministry is completely different from where it was before. So the first thing we did is the legal framework of the ministry was revised. We revised the legal framework ranging from the laws, the regulations, and all these things. Again, the other aspect which was revised is the coordination between us and our partners. And in that area, we removed Wildlife Conservation Society, which is the American NGO, and it was replaced by the African Parks network from South Africa, likely. And then we had to put down, and that agreement between us, the main objective of that thing is to establish a legal framework between us and African parks in which we can implement issues of management, issues of security. When I say security, I'm talking about law enforcement.
Yes.
And then we talk about engagement or empowerment of the communities. We talk about these aspects and the tourism establishment. So all these things were covered in the MOU, and we now are starting implementation, because all these things can be implemented in one day. So we thought surveys and colouring are the priority, so we can know how many animals we have and where are they now at the moment, and where do they move in the rainy season and in dry season.
So now, what are the major wild species that are moving
Now,
together?
The migration is led by the white-eared kob. White-eared kob is the leading of around 3 million, if I'm not wrong.
5 million.
5 million, and other 3 species constitute the other 1 million.
What are they like? Just only?
Yeah, okay. The tiang species, and the Mangala gazelle, and the redback, and other smaller species.
Yes. So, Ms. Dorette, as the country representative or country director of African Parks, since the launching result up to now, what is the situation that, because you're the managers who are managing Boma, Badingilo National Parks and Jungle Landscape, what is the situation of the wild animals there?
I was just looking at pictures this morning. We have a photographer on commission in the landscape, and he was in Duk in Jonglei. And it's truly amazing what South Sudan has. One of our slogans that we're using is the land of great abundance. Yes, we're talking about 4 migratory species, and we were very happy that earlier this year we could release the fact sheets through CMS, the Convention on Conservation of Migratory Species, on the tiang and the white-eared kob. But what these surveys have shown us, throughout the years, but then confirmed again in 2023, is that the sedentary species, right, so species that are not migrating, their numbers have reduced. We've not seen a zebra in this country since 2008. So there is an absolute abundance, but the sedentary species, those that need to be near water, those that are not migrating, like the gazelle, their numbers have gone down. Still, the bird life in this country is phenomenal. The shoe bull population is of the biggest we estimate. The Nile lechwe that we were just looking at again in Jonglei is one of the biggest populations we think. So the question is twofold. Sedentary species, the numbers have gone down. We do see really encouraging signs. We were just spotting a pack of 50 wild dogs between Marwa and Nyat last week, and it got everybody really excited. Wild dogs is always a really good indicator of the ecosystem. But at large, yes, there are species that we're very worried about. Elephants, for instance, no zebra since 2008. I'm sure DG will add to that.
Okay, out of this question of managing, there is concern of the people like, why I have to go up to the parks far away and facing this a lot of dangers there, or even losing a lot of money to get clean and whatever. Why does the ministry and its partners have this kind of zoo, a small zoo for wild animals, so they will come and have visit there?
You see these ideas of zoo is a old school thinking. You see, when we were colonized, by our colonizers. You see, they were fond of taking animals from here, from Africa mainly, to Europe. And they established zoos in Europe, whereby people can see creatures that they don't have in their environment there. So it was good for recreation, and it was good for education and other aspects of learning. But for us now, like a place like Juba, I don't need to have a zoo in Juba. Because if you travel for 1 hour, you just see free ranging animal in their own environment. So, and again, the other aspect which is very important, you know, to run a zoo is not an easy thing. To run a zoo is not an easy thing. It needs management. I mean, I talk about management, I'm talking about veterinarians and ecologists and biologists, you see, including the feeding. So it is not a simple thing that you can, I mean, it's not a business that you can gain from, or even the income of the zoo cannot feed the zoo animals. But in some countries like Europe, some people, the companies, they adopt some species. Like somebody will tell you, I will take care of the section of the lions, I will feed them, a company or a rich person. But for the government to take care of this, it is not easy. It is not easy, especially.
But now there is new terminologies, of course, like you cannot have a zoo, but you will have something called orphanage home, because even though you need this kind of veterinaries and you need these ecologists, whatever, you need them, because when you're managing the wildlife species on the bush, some of them will get injured. Some of them, their mother died or whatever, they just alone, orphans. And you have to adopt them, bring them, raise them, treat them, and then release them again.
You see, my brother, in the wilderness, we should not interfere in everything. Nature must be left to play its own role. Animals have been here before us. Do you know that? These creatures have been created. Even if you go to the Bible, animals have been created before us. So they are more senior than us. So that the nature takes its place. When one is sick, let it die. But we also die as human beings. So we shouldn't interfere. But talking about the orphanage facilities, they are there in some countries. But you know, they are getting difficulties now, even in running them. Now we're planning to take one of the orphans we got here to South Africa, but we are still putting things together so they can go.
Okay, let's just come back. Let's just come back to our focus: the wildlife migration, the seasonal migration, and the agreement that you signed with the African parks. On the agreement, there is issue of development. I want to see that Boma and particular national parks, is it really developed, or what is there to be done up to now? And this one goes to African parks as the manager.
No, thanks, Martin. In the last 2.5 years since we signed the agreement, the focus has been on infrastructure development, the park headquarters, to set up infrastructure along with forwarding bases through the landscape. The focus was on relationship building, getting to know the communities. So a lot of focus has been on settling in, settling down, and as we have just discussed yesterday at the ministry, there's a lot of focus on data, on the information, to base our conservation strategies on science and data. And if you just consider that in this landscape of 130,000 square kilometers, there are over 15 different ethnic groups that we need to get to know, that we need to engage with. Along with the rapid speed of infrastructure development, for instance, in South Sudan, there's a lot to keep up with. So a lot of time, you know, like DG said, you know, things don't happen overnight. The focus has really been on settling in, settling down, and really getting ready to take off and you know,
So
advance with communities.
The development of the headquarters, for example.
Yeah, so no, great question, thank you. But Dingalo, which is just an hour and 15 minutes up the road on the Boer Highway, is really becoming a hub for the landscape. That's, for instance, where we have our whole GIS department moving soon. So we're finishing extra offices, for instance. In Boma, we have the headquarters in Nyat, and a big development over the last 6 months was, for instance, in Marwa, with the community to build a tourist camp of 8 beds. So it's a tented, typical safari camp. But that was one of the infrastructure developments that has taken place in the last 6 months. I've mentioned the forwarding bases. If you want to be active in a landscape as big as this, you need hangars and aircraft and forwarding bases. And we have about 400 national staff and just over 20 international staff. So it's a big team. There are resources and you know, it is this thing of, you know, developing your resources and your infrastructure so that you can adequately, you know, really look at the landscape and service the landscape. And with that, you know, we're quite focused on the data and the information.
Okay, DG Khamis, like she mentioned areas of development so far in the headquarters and some areas in the Greater Bibor administrative area that she mentioned about tourism camps and so forth. We want to see the wildlife forces in this area for implementing this kind of agreement. How far did you reach?
You see, before talking about that, Mr. Martin, let me just recall what I have said before and what she mentioned also. You see, you cannot manage an area unless you know what you have there. What do you have and where are they? Mm. So now you start planning now. Planning about where do you want, where you're supposed to open roads, feeder roads, trails, you see, and, I mean observation points. It needs knowledge about the area, the ecosystem and the two parks, which now they are doing very well. My friend, regarding the development now, by next week or the end of this month, you will be able to see the movement of animals in Buma Badingilo and Jungle from my office. If you're just looking at a screen, then you will be able to see all the movement animals that are tagged in the program of the scientific and technological part of the work being done by African Parks. So this is a very serious development. I have been following one lion, which we found injured, and then we rescue it and release it. And now I'm able to follow it. Last time it went up to Gambela and it came back to Lafon here from my office. So this is a very big achievement. Regarding the training of my rangers, African Parks did a lot. They train people in Buma, rangers in Buma, and they train also rangers in Badingilo National Park. But what happened? They came with a very tough system of training. Selection alone knocked out majority of my people. And it is the thing we are going to discuss with them. I don't need that standard of a ranger. I mean, maybe the crimes are more developed in other countries than in South Sudan. South Sudan, they come for meat. They shoot, they run. I don't need that ranger of jumping from a helicopter to down and, you know, you see, I don't need that tough guy. I need somebody in between, good, tough, and at least, because now majority of my people have been knocked out in that selection criteria. It's very tough. They are, now my guys like Marines, even the way they work have changed.
But even though what I know, there is people who have passed this type of training.
Yes.
And I heard like in Buma there is 14 rangers.
Out of how many? Do you know out of how many?
And in Badingilo there is 14. Phase 1, phase 2 they have 24.
Yeah.
How these people pass and why?
They pass because you know the selection. These 14 are talking about. They were selected from 150. So imagine from 150 you take 14. It means it was a very tough. Tough selection. Yeah, okay. It's good that, you know, those guys have passed because they are young or they are educated, but others, they didn't manage it. I need them.
So, Dorette, as a country manager, some of these areas, like I mentioned in Buma, just only one batch, 14 personnel. And since that time up to now, there is nothing. In Badingilo, you have 2 badges, batch 1, 14, batch 2, 24 rangers. Up to now, there is no any training on the ground. What's happening?
So there has been training on the ground, but I think to maybe comment on the whole topic of law enforcement, I think one thing that we've also recognized on the Boma side, for instance, is to come back and also say, but, you know, for a big park like Boma, we decided in consultation and after really getting to know the communities and the landscape, that we would rather, based on success of African parks in other countries, to employ what we call transhumance engagement people. So they are called tangos, and we have 54 of them. And they are walking the landscape. They are in the pastoralist corridors. They engage with pastoralists bringing cattle through this landscape, as you know, and they sensitize on conservation, on human-wildlife conflict. Along with these teams, we are doing livestock vaccinations. So you can see that our model is maybe a bit different. Yes, we do have rangers. Yes, we are in active consultation with the ministry on this topic of law enforcement. But you can imagine, and maybe you will agree, that for a landscape this big, you have to look at different ways of managing and enforcing the law. There are different technologies.
Area, like, for example, let me say it, and we're supposed to go for a short break, but before we go to that short break, I want to focus on the areas of this community engagement.
Yeah.
Communities said you are preventing them from eating the wild animal or whatever. So I want to see that both of you, what projects that you came, at least to convince the communities not to focus only on poaching and so forth.
Mr. Martin, sorry, let me just request from you, just a request.
Yes.
To change the term preventing to any term better than this one. This one is very rough on us. You see,
I agree.
We don't prevent people from dealing with animals or handling animals. We are here to regulate,
to manage,
and manage sustainably.
Yeah.
So we have to attain sustainability. Even now in the law, we have inserted a section that is speaking about the community conservancies, in which by an area, specified area, demarcated, determined between us and the community to be utilized by the community for their own benefits, in which it can include traditional methods of hunting. You go for 1-2 gazelles for your own consumption, but not for commercial purposes, like what is happening now in South Sudan. What is happening now, animals are being killed in thousands, my friend. So if we are preventing killing in thousands, then we should be right in this case. But even we prevent killing of a rabbit, but we need to regulate it. And this is the direction we are going to.
So to convince such person, what projects that you came on the ground?
They only started in the Boma. Now they are encouraging the local communities in the honey production and the plantation of trees. So in which by they will get even cash. Now if they harvest their honey that is supported by the African parks now, they will generate a lot of money and they will benefit. And they have opened one classroom for their children in which they are studying. And they have opened a nutrition center in Buma, in which by children can be brought up in a healthy, nutritional.
So let me just ask her to emphasize a little bit on these projects, because we want to hear a lot about the projects that that helped the local communities, at least to make sure that they have other alternatives, not just only the wildlife.
No, indeed, Martin. Working with the communities, like DG has said, is really important, and it's one of the main focus areas of African parks. Without working with communities, conservation and the management of wildlife is not going to be sustainable. But that also means that you don't go fast in this landscape. That means you go slow, you really get to know the communities, the authorities, the landscape, the traditions, and communities in South Sudan has such a big attachment to the land and the wildlife. It is so part of the culture. And so conservation for many communities and ethnic groups is an intrinsic part of their culture. We are just here to show up as a credible development partner, to work with the partner in government, to really come alongside communities to say, here are biodiversity hotspots, for instance, in dry and wet seasons, something that we also just discussed yesterday. You know, this is what the land can be used for to create the sustainable livelihoods. the World Bank released this Natural Resources Review report earlier this year. It's amazing what they estimate, what natural resources can bring to this country. Fisheries, forestry, but then also products like honey. So yes, we are supporting the value chain of 33 honey farmers in the Lafon area, and that created a whole different line of honey under Hagana. So there are different, there's a beading project in Otalo. Yes, we're supporting several schools in the GPAA. We're paying salaries for teachers. We just distributed a whole lot of school books, gift in kind from UNICEF.
Okay, let us
South
just stop
Sudan.
here and then go for a short break.
Okay.
So we'll be back and then we'll continue on our discussions. Yes, dear viewers of SSBC, we're still having this kind of interview. There's a special interview dedicated to celebrating the first anniversary since the President of the Republic, Salva Kiir Mayardit, launched the census result of the seasonal wildlife migration that's known as the Great Nile Migration. And of course, in the studio we have DG Khamis and Mr. Smith with me from the African Parks. Let's go to for a short break and then we'll back and then continue. Welcome back, dear viewers of SSBC, wherever you are. You're following us from our main studios here in Nyakuran, as we are celebrating the first anniversary of launching the result of the wildlife or seasonal wildlife migration, which is known as the Great Nile Migration by the President of the Republic, Salva Kiir Mayardit. That result came as a result of cooperation between the African Parks Network and the Ministry of Wildlife Conservation and Tourism. And of course, result of that one leading to South Sudan to be the #1 in the world in terms of wildlife, with about 6 million wild animals. With me in the studio is General Khamis Adiang Ding, the Director General of the Wildlife Conservation Forces. And then also we have Ms. Smith, Dorette Smith, who is the Country Director of African Parks Network. Welcome back again.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, before the short break, we were focusing on the areas of community development, the alternative that you came with it, at least to draw the attention of the communities, not just only to focus on wildlife, but to have another alternative. And you highlighted on the projects that you make it on the ground with the communities, the honey projects, education, whatever. So can you just give us a little also about some other alternative that you have on the ground, apart of the educational projects, the honey products? What about the handmade things like ornament or beads, whatever?
So we do have a beading project in Otalo. What we're starting to look at now is also alternative livelihoods through introducing lulu presses, balanite, etc. So really working off the land of the resources that are there. We're doing it with the community. It takes time, to really find the right projects that can be sustainable. And the tourism pilot, the camp that we've built in Marawa, I really hope that in the next season of the migration can really show what it can do for tourism, for instance, in South Sudan.
Okay, let me say, because if you're talking about the wild animals, always connected to the culture. Some of the areas you'll see the animals we have in there representing one of the cultural things in this community. So I want to see the cultural investment or the projects that link to the culture of the community surround the game parks and jungle landscape.
Well, I mean, my mind immediately goes to Giraffe Day. That was just on Saturday. And some of the Kurunen age groups, they are giraffe. Like all the age groups have the different animal names. So like I said before, there's a very deep link between wildlife and culture in South Sudan. I think it will lead to different types of projects, as we continue to work with communities. It is going to be very interesting to see what other resources, what will come of a balanite project, what will come of a Lulu project. Lafon, for instance, it's not easy to get that honey out, but by supporting the value chain, in 2024 we brought out 750 kilograms of honey. When the plane goes there, they bring back out the honey. So it's finding how we can, elevate something simple easily by supporting the value chain. Does that make sense? So it's not always just about starting a whole project with the community. But like with this honey, the farmers were there already. We just supported in a small way with transport and training.
Okay.
And there we go.
So DJ Khamis in this area like Lafon, Bor, and Pibor really marked one of the hotspot areas in terms of poaching. Is this type of projects that has been done through or with the communities have impact on the poaching right now, or it didn't affect the poaching still continues?
No, thank you, Martin, for that question. Actually, these projects have been started recently, and I'm sure by the course of the time, they will have influence on the people. But again, as we mentioned, communities are the backbone of conservation. Because all the problems we face from the community, we face in protected areas, are likely from community, not necessarily members of that community, but they can facilitate entrance of other people through their community and come and make some hazardous, activities in the protected areas, like killing and all these type of things. This is why we want to gain the appreciation of the communities by facilitating them to have their own resources from this wildlife itself. The other thing worth to be mentioned is that we are now in contact with the World Bank. So they are ready to finance community development projects in which we are going to use in the same areas you had mentioned. Like Fon, we take them to Lafon. For the community conservancies, they will sponsor all these things for the improvement of the livelihood of the community. So they can, start appreciating the role of the government. We are not enemies with the communities. We are very good friends, but they don't know this friendship. But they will know it very soon. The problem we are facing, people don't differentiate between community land and the public land. This is a very important issue. Somebody will come and tell you, this Badingale is ours. It's not a community land. Any national park declared by law is not a community land again. It's a public land. It's owned by the government. Community land is outside there. The other thing which is an obstacle to us is there are some, for example, community from anywhere you take, is staying in Juba here. They will come to the ministry, for example, to complain other issues related to that part of the park, and they are not staying with the community. This is why they will have different claims. Some of them will tell you we should be participated, we should be employed, and then we should also, our children should be sent for a scholarship. And they talk about a scholarship in Canada, in America. And the local person there on the ground, he needs a borehole, he needs a classroom for the children. So these communities are different. There are communities from that area, but they are staying in Juba here. Their claims completely different.
Okay, now we're supposed to talk about introducing tourism, as we have this kind of largest mammal migration in the world. Now, the issue of tourism, let me see, before we go to the tourism, what's supposed to be done based on the agreement that we have with African parks? What's supposed to be done on the ground, at least to manage or to have the grant of managing the path or the way of that mammal migration?
First of all, you have to do the studies. You are supposed to base any project on a solid finding of a project by involving even these communities in that project. And then we will measure the potential of that project. And then we come into convincing the government and convincing the communities of the importance of that thing. Tomorrow I don't want to hear that a tourist has been attacked by a community because of this or that. This is why this thing must be ironed from now. They are straightforward, they are ironed, they are known, and then we start our business. We don't risk the life of any tourist.
Yes. DG Khamis, I think I was with you accompanying the Minister of Wildlife Conservation and Tourism to his trip to Greater Bor and Greater P-Bor administrative area. The aims was to launch the tourism by the nationals. And there was parliamentarians with us and so forth. You have visited that areas and you see the potentials that we have on the mammal migration that we have, launching the tourism. Can you just emphasize on encouragement words on how the nationals themselves can support the national tourism?
That is very good. Actually, this is the real talking point which is very important for all of us. First of all, we have to accept that we have got a challenge. As South Sudanese, we have to accept that I have got problems or challenges in Jonglei state. We have to accept first. Then if we accept that there's a challenge of poaching or refusal of law or whatever you might be calling, then we sit down and agree on a method to take to solve these problems. Then that is it. But if we don't accept that there is something wrong, we cannot accept to solve it. We should accept that we have got a problem, then we'll look for a solution for it. The area is potential for wildlife conservation, and it's potential for tourism as well. As we travel from board up to people, this is a very attractive area for tourism. At the same time, animals are just roaming like nothing. So it's a nice place for tourism. But would we control ourselves? Would we control the security? Because tourism without security, I think, is zero. But relatively now, security is there. If there is no security, we could have reached people. Although we pass through small difficulties, which are normal. They are normal. These type of things are normal. So there is relative security, and the government is trying at its level best to at least make a value of the presence of wildlife in terms of tourism utilization, so we can participate in the economic growth of our country. Otherwise, we cannot be just claiming budgets from the government and we are not bringing anything.
This is in terms of the national tourism. Now I want to focus on international attention, as you are the managers of the parks since the launching up to now. What efforts that you have put as African parks, at least to showcase South Sudan potentials to the world?
No, thank you, Martin. We've had several international media houses through the landscape already this year. Publications still pending. These things take long. I've mentioned that we currently have a photographer in the landscape on commission. So there are several international publications coming out, really showcasing this abundance, the variety of species, the bird life. On national level, I think we're engaging more on radio, also with the ministry. Our billboards, just the sensitization through our community agents. I think showcasing South Sudan also goes along with its rich culture. So that community, that culture aspect is really important to African parks, and really working on the whole process of tourism, right? So the whole chain of generating value throughout the chain, but also for communities. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what 2026 brings. We've had international guests that did unfortunately cancel this year because of their perception of the security situation. At the height of the migration season is around March and April, and so we've had cancellations, but we continue to work with the government also on national and subnational on creating that value chain when it comes to tourism. So I'm personally very excited about tourism, but also how the community is going to play a role.
This in terms of showcasing the case, but let me just go down on the ground. You are managing Boma Bandingro and Jungle Landscape. And we're seeing there is people through social media.
Yeah.
They are appealing like, how can I go as a South Sudanese, even a foreigner living in South Sudan, in Juba, how can I have that kind of chance to visit that areas?
Yeah, I know. We get many, many inquiries. We do provide access or opportunities for school kids to come to Badingalo. The bottom line is that we don't have those facilities in the parks. So we don't have overnight facilities. It's only Marwa where we have 8 beds, and that's a separate camp, right? So we don't have those overnight facilities. I think, DG, you have alluded to this earlier. It's not as if you have all these developed roads. So the parks is not as such where you can pay an entrance fee and you can drive yourself like in many others. So that is a project that will take years, to build roads, for instance, in a park. So again, there is not public access at the moment because we don't have the facilities. We don't have that process to allow somebody in the park and view animals at the moment.
Okay, DG Khamis, let's come to the part of security, managing the parks. Wildlife Forces is the right owner of governing, securing the parks and any person moving inside the parks. But we're hearing between time and time there's slight problems inside the parks, especially in Badingulu National Park. How can you guarantee to the general public that are seeing you as the main character in the wildlife service that these animals are safe?
Okay, before I answer this question, let me just talk about what Tori was talking about in connection to the tourism. In the ministry, we played a big role. It is for the first time that there is a Tourism Act for the first time in the Republic of South Sudan, by the way. Even during the regional government, but there was nothing like that. So now we managed to enact a law for tourism. The second thing that we in the ministry also, we have communicated with the many donors to come and invest in tourism. You see, tourism like accommodation she's talking about cannot be built by the government or by African parks. But if you can, we can contract a firm who can do these things, and we have given them the investment opportunities. It is published and we send it to them. So we are expecting them to come anytime. They can come anytime. Because now, if I take you to Jungule now, to Badingulu, I mean, there is no way you can stay or have yourself with your family. But soon these things are going to happen. Connection to the security of the park is patrolled on a weekly basis, if I'm not wrong. And some patrols are on foot patrol and some are on vehicle patrols.
And by air.
And by air also, they make it, they roam by air. And there is a plan of bringing a drone now soon that can, cut down the expenses of vehicle or ground patrol, because the drone can just fly around and indicate or show us where are some elements that can cause danger to the park. But one of the problems, again, this road, Juba Bor Road, is passing through the park. So it is another inconvenience, although there is no alternative except we do that. And the other slight things like at the periphery of the park there is the army barracks there. And it is not easy to control people with firearms. It is not easy. So they have resorted to charcoal and
that's what I'm coming for, the cooperation between the wildlife forces, military, SSPDF in particular, national security, and police and other that security agencies.
Yeah, actually, we took the opportunity of being in one forum of the JDB. So people talk about the cooperation and coordination in implementation of the duties and obligations laid to us by the Constitution, by our national laws. But those violators are not. It's not an organized thing by the army or by the police or any organized body. These are individuals from within. So they go and they mess up, and tomorrow when they are arrested, they will say national security. It's not national security who did the crime. It's a person from within the national security. So these things are controllable. And now we start, like last time, recently we arrested South Sudan Police Services vehicles loaded with a lot of meat. So I reported it to the IGP. And let me take this opportunity to thank him very much for the steps he took. He formed an investigation committee to these generals, and the results will be communicated to us soon. This is a very good step. Also, the CDF did the same thing. We arrested vehicles, even an ambulance, army ambulance. We arrested an ambulance being misused. When it was coming from war crying, we thought it was carrying a sick person, but it was carrying bush. It was carrying a dead animal. So this thing was communicated, and I think they are taking steps. So there is a change, by the way. Okay. There is a change in the linkage even of the organized forces.
We remain with a few minutes to go out, but I want just to emphasize a little bit on the result that we are celebrating today is just for Boma Badingulu National Park and Jungule Landscape. We have other areas in South Sudan, and we have other parks in South Sudan, and that is concerning you. Can you just see how far the South Sudan will have, how amazing South Sudan is, how the land of great abundance is, if the Ministry of Wildlife Conservation and other partners did the same survey in other parts of the country.
Yeah, this is very good. You know, when we talk about 6 million, we are talking about our migration, the Great Nile migration. But it doesn't mean that people not talk about now the elephant population have reduced. Yeah, we are talking about this specific area, 130,000 kilometers square, which we have surveyed and we have witnessed. But we are not talking about the whole Republic of South Sudan, because there is the Unity State is rich with animals, and some parts of the adjacent area to the Warab areas and Tony, also there are elephants there. And even if you go deeper there to Ye River and Lantoto National Park and areas adjacent to DRC, there are a lot of population. Even there are forest elephants there, not the savanna elephant we know here. So now we are talking about 2 parks only, Buma and Badingilo. But we have got other 4 parks, which are very important. But the good things now, the good news I'm carrying for you is now partners, NGOs are coming now. Now there is the Frankfurt Zoological Society, which was working in Buma early in 70s or early 80s. Now it's coming back now. And they're likely to go and operate in Shambe area. That area, they will. Now even they are doing reconnaissance surveys, the pilot projects. So people are coming now. Donors are coming and NGOs are coming. So soon we are going to cover all South Sudan with donors.
So we say congratulations for you both for this achievement last year and up to now. You still continue doing the same job of protecting the wildlife and helping the communities to understand about the wildlife and introducing tourism in the country. As we are finalizing our interviews today, as we are celebrating this result, let's just give you 1 minute words that you want to advise, you want to say, you want to explain yourself, you want to explain about the African parks, you want to add more on what you did on the ground. Please, you're welcome. Direct.
Thank you, Martin. I think I will add to what DGF just talked about, additional partners coming in. I want to commend also national NGOs that are on the ground, that are working. We have quite a few national NGOs and networks that are quite active. We have donors in South Sudan starting to fund conservation, alternative livelihoods. It's really important to me personally that we unpack the ways in which alternative livelihoods in a country of South Sudan where you do have a humanitarian crisis can really bring sustainable change for communities. If we link alternative livelihoods and conservation, that is the way to go. And I'm really glad to see that there are major donors starting to really invest money. Years ago, they started in climate and resilience, and I'm really happy to see that there are major donors now starting to put money into, again, still in climate and resilience, disaster risk reduction, but really also in conservation and the alternative livelihoods. So I will finish with that. Conservation is everybody's business. It is how we educate our kids. It's how we talk about the terminology that we use. It's how we manage and develop. But it's also how we work together. Different partners, the donors, but government leading us into how do we conserve this heritage in South Sudan for generations to come.
Thank you very much. DG Khamis?
Yeah, I would like to urge my fellow citizens of the Republic of South Sudan that it is the right time for us to take care of our natural resources, about wildlife. So let us try to come back to our senses. Let us stop killing wildlife in these huge numbers. Let us change our perceptions in wearing our animal parts in our bodies as decoration. I'm sure it's good traditionally, but I'm telling you, in big towns and in other cities, it doesn't look nice, as if we are not civilized. So let us try to stop these things, and let us try to respect law. I normally talk about we should respect laws, but not fear laws. We shouldn't fear law. I will be arrested, I will be put in prison. No, don't fear law. Respect law. It is your law. It is the law of your country. So let us respect our law. Let us respect our country. Let us work together so we can move this country from this level to another level. Now people are talking about reform. We should accept reform, all of us. I'm advertising for reform also. We should accept reform because without doing that, we will not go up with our country to another level whereby people are in. Why do we send our children to Uganda? Why do we send our families to Kenya? It's because there is better life. Better life, what do we make our better life here? And better life can be made. All the elements of improving our countries are in our hands. So please let us do it. Again, I urge the donors and other NGOs who work in the field of conservation and other tourism, for example, please come to South Sudan. It's very rich. And don't hear the rumors outside that, there is danger, people are being killed. I was asked by somebody in Nairobi, do you have airport? I said, but what do you mean, my friend? We have airport. Do you have restaurants? Do you have hotels where I can? So South Sudan is very beautiful country. There are 5-star hotels here. You come and then seeing is believing. Come and see by yourself.
Of course, thank you very much, DJ Khamis, and of course, for exploiting or showcasing South Sudan. It's the role of our national TV, and also you, as the Minister of Wildlife Conservation and Tourism, you have Department of Tourism Marketing. They supposed to play a big role on showcasing South Sudan. So our neighboring, at least here in Nairobi, Kenya, they're supposed not to say, do you have airport, because they're our neighbors, and they know what do we have. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope that you will continue with success in your cooperation in future, inshallah. For you, dear viewers, thank you very much for following us as we are celebrating this first anniversary of the President announcing the result of the census result of the wildlife migration, which is known as the Great Nile Migration. Thank you very much. I will continue. We have this great land of great abundance, not just only in Buma Badingilo National Park, but also all part of South Sudan, as we have other 4 game parks plus game reserves, 12 game reserves in South Sudan. Thank you very much, and bye-bye for now.